Now, to analyze the NBS data showing headline inflation eased to 14.45% in November of this year from 16.05% in October. We have Dr. Justin Amase. He's an economist joining us on News 99. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
Thank you, Adesua.
Yes. You know, ordinarily, this headline really should make us very, very excited. Okay, let me just ask. Would you say with these figures that we're seeing now, the 8th consecutive, lowering of inflation, 14.45%, is Nigeria officially out of the woods? Number one. And what exactly are the drivers of this, slowdown in inflation?
Well, thank you so much. You have a situation whereby the numbers are carried over from the rebasing, mainly. Now, if you look at it, there are two dimensions. The first is that years that were reformed, and as we all know, the reformed had both negative and positive impact. As at today, the few impacts of the reform that would have influenced inflation significantly, which you can point out, is essentially the stability of the exchange rate. Right. And that has been achieved as a result of the higher build-up of the reserves and the return of confidence generally, and other policies of the central bank that raise interest rate to bring in portfolio investment. Now, fundamentally, the trend of the inflation rates are a reflection of what the rebasing, came out with. For instance, you remember that in December 2024, the inflation had gone up to 34.8%. But immediately after the rebasing, it came down to 48%. Now, a 10% decline in inflation overnight, it's very difficult to consider as a normal decline. So essentially what happened was a statistical adjustment of the rate as at then, due to the issues that came out from the rebasing. For instance, the rebasing brought in a new base year from 2009 to 2024. Then the rebasing reweighted the basket of goods for consumption. And for instance, food inflation, which carried a weight of 52%, was downgraded to 40%. Yeah. Why restaurants, as you already pointed out, and other services, the weight was moved from 1.2 to almost 10. And then, apart from that, the inflation basket was adjusted to reflect the current consumption pattern, moving from 740 items to about 960. Now, all this adjustment had a fundamental impact on the numbers. And effectively, you cannot compare the numbers we are having now with the numbers for last year, because methodology and all those adjustments have resulted in outputs that are significantly different from that. So essentially what is going on now is that there is a base year impact, a very serious base year impact, because the overall base year impact for last year is about 30%. So if you have new numbers and then you use the base year of 30% to compute them, at the end you get something much higher. So there is a disconnect between what is going on the ground and the numbers. And thank God that the MBS acknowledged that.
Okay, Dr. Amase, so given this methodological change, because what he is saying is now is this methodology that has really changed the figures. First part of my question would then be, would average Nigerians feel the impact of this methodology in market prices, for instance, in food, the food inflation? And should they receive this with cautious optimism, or should we get ready for more relief? What is the trajectory going to look like going forward? If we've seen this 8 times already, how is it likely to progress? Downward or upward?
Well, I know that macroeconomic variables such as inflation, for a developing economy, they are very complex to explain because fundamentally we talk about the relationship between demand and supply to explain what every major macroeconomic variable, how it is behaving. Now, in Nigeria's case, the primary drivers of inflation in Nigeria were structural. That is, the supply side issues we had, such as inflation, the depreciation of the exchange rate, high energy and transport costs, as well as lack of infrastructure, and a couple of other factors. Now, if you look at those factors I have mentioned, a lot of them are still with us. So fundamentally, we cannot expect a reprieve now because the economy itself is structurally shallow. There is no diversification. Then there is low productivity. These two elements are the ones that transform the economy in such a way that the economy produces enough for the citizens to consume and then does not rely on import. For now, it will take a number of years before Nigeria completely cuts away from total reliance on import. Because in terms of revenue that stabilize the currency, foreign export revenue, we are yet to be there. We are still depending primarily on oil export. So it is very difficult to believe that relief is coming as a result of the numbers. But the rebasing was essential because it's a global practice. You know, it captures some economic sectors that were excluded in previous baskets. Yeah. However, whatever is the outcome is mainly statistical adjustment. And the impact of the base year is what is being carried on up to now. So the average Nigerian cannot feel the impact because even the MB has pointed out in the report for each of the months that yes, these inflation numbers are declining, but that does not mean inflation itself is declining. In the November report, it was pointed out clearly, and you can see the numbers there, that even the food inflation that is supposed to be declining increased.
1.2%.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So the underlying thing, if you look at the service sector, healthcare, for instance, the prices are going up by the month. So essentially, there is no average impact. But the good thing is that this policy, this rebasing, helped the government and the central bank to identify areas of intervention within the economy that will help to jumpstart more growth and recovery.
Which areas are those? I'm curious to hear those. Which areas do you think, or has government discovered that can actually help jumpstart the economy? Because all I've heard you say is that this is really an illusion. What all that we're seeing in terms of figures and all of that it's really not translating in the lives, in the micro economic health of the average Nigerian. What are these other areas that can, help boost the economy in a way that will affect, the average Nigerian? And what needs to be done, really, to sustain that good trajectory?
Well, I earlier mentioned the structural issues, and those are the issues that the government is addressing.
Which
issues of insecurity, issues of infrastructure, issues of stabilizing the exchange rate, and then issues of energy prices.
Lack of
In
production.
fact, there are a lot of policies from the Electricity Act 2023 to nationally determined contribution. All of that are addressing, and a lot of initiatives are going on now. By the time they run their course, you will see a positive impact in terms of employment, because energy provision of electricity have been decentralized to the state. We are using a new model now.
Yes.
So investment will be encouraged. What is an outstanding issue is the issue of subsidy to electricity. But I believe that government will address that. And at the end of the day, because issues like exchange rate is stabilizing, when exchange rate stabilizes, the foreign investment comes in more. and then the cost of goods stop rising because you are importing machinery, raw materials, and other finished goods into your economy. But if the exchange rate is stabilizing, remember it was around 250 by May 2023, and I moved to an average of 1,500 naira, and now it's coming down. Yeah. So essentially, the reforms carry some positive seeds, but they need a little bit of time for those seeds to come out, because the damage that came out from the initial reaction of the economy to the pillar of those reforms, that's the removal of fuel subsidy and the exchange relocation, need a lead time, and that is how economic policy works before the effect can wear out.
Interesting. I'm just looking at the reports. There are some interesting figures as well. We are seeing regional differences. While food inflation is going down in places like Imo State, it's going up in Yobe, Katsina, and a whole lot of others. But thank you so much, Dr. Amase, for being here. Dr. Justin Amase is an economist. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adesa.